Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mr. Secretary, can you do a roll call?
Mr. Arago. Here. Mr. DePonche.
Here.
Mr. Johannan.
Here. He's here.
Mr. Lattiole.
He's absent.
Mr. Miller. Mr. Morgan.
Here.
Mr. Noel.
Here.
Mr. Weeshan.
Yeah.
Ms. Chandler.
Here.
Ms. White. Mr. Humphries. Ms. Boudreau. Ms. Heaton.
I'm here as well. I didn't answer, but I'm here.
I didn't call
You
you?
did, huh? You did, you just went past it, but I'm.
All right, we have a quorum, and Glenda has laryngitis, so, Wilma does, so she's here. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Rick,
Second.
a second by Randy.
I propose amendment to the agenda.
Okay.
I would like to remove item B1. This is on the agenda. There is no backup documentation that was provided to the commissioners in regard to what this is about. I checked with Ms. Glenda. She didn't have anything. Ms. Chandler didn't have anything. Chris Humphrey didn't have anything. So we don't have any backup documentation on what this is about. And I would prefer that at least be some given so we know at least what the topic is and what's going to be covered. So I move to delete that from our agenda.
All right, do you have a second? Well, Clay, you put it on there. Why don't you tell us?
Okay, so we don't want to discuss flood protection? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that's what we do all day long, Mr. Kosei, is discuss flood protection.
Well, go ahead, vote on it.
All right, do we have a motion and a second to revise the agenda and remove item B1, which is titled Discussion of Flood Protection in a General Format? So all in favor of revising the agenda?
Aye.
1, 2, all opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Nay, I want to hear what he has to say.
Okay, 5. So we have, so the agenda stays as is.
Okay.
All right. And I didn't vote, but I didn't need to, since there were 5. Anyway, so I guess we go back to the agenda as issued. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is adopted. All right, motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on October 21st. Moved by Herb Weesham, seconded by Rick. Any comments or questions? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Okay.
my abstention, I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, and I wasn't either, so 2 abstentions, rest vote for. But I read them, they look good, and I watched it on TV too, so. Thank you. Employee recognition and appreciation. All right. I don't have any specific order, so if whoever opens first is going first. Is Karen Fernandez here? Okay. All right. Lieutenant Darnold Laurent. Is he here?
Mike Darnell here? Okay, he couldn't make it. So.
He's not here either. Oh, good. We're 2 for 2.
Move it along.
All right, Sergeant Arthur Agee. Agee?
McGee.
Come forward. Thank you. All right, I'm going to read a short statement, and then we'll present you with a certificate and a coin and ask you to step up here and take a picture. So first, Sergeant Arthur Agee, is that Agee? Was nominated by his colleagues and selected as the Police Officer of the Month due to his professionalism as a law enforcement officer and service to the public. He is a sergeant with the East Jefferson Levy District Police Department. On July 24, 2021, Sergeant Agee conducted a traffic stop on Clearview Parkway of a vehicle displaying a license plate registered to a different vehicle. Upon conducting record checks of the subject in the vehicle, it was revealed that each subject had multiple outstanding felony and misdemeanor attachments. Upon making apprehension of the subjects, the passenger of the vehicle was questioned in reference to having narcotics and weapons, at which time the passenger admitted to being in possession of methamphetamine. Upon conclusion of the investigation, both subjects were arrested for their outstanding attachments, and the passenger was charged for possession of the methamphetamine. I don't do drugs, so I can't say the word. Come up and take a picture.
Congratulations.
Unless you take your mask
All right, gentlemen, on three. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Send that to my wife so she can make think I'm smaller than I am.
You don't want to play ball against him?
All right, I guess the other two did show up, so we're going to our safety minute. Rusty.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rusty Kennedy, Director of Risk, Safety, and Facilities here. Darren Nichols here is with our permanent pumps complex structures over there at the end of the Outfall canals. He's a facility manager and oversees all three of them, so he's going to give our safety briefing this morning.
You'll have to excuse me. I had to write it down because I'm not good at lecture type speeches. I'm more of a teaching type. Good morning, everyone. Commissioners, my name is Darren Nichols. I'm the facility maintenance manager, electrician specialist over the pumping stations. I'm one of the senior operators and oversee the daily operations of the 17th Street pumping station. I'd like to let you know a little bit about what I bring to the table. I'm a veteran, served in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. I've worked in civil service for 13 years, of which the last 3 have been here at FBA. Most people that know me will describe me as a jack of all trades. I hold over a dozen different licenses and certificates, from an FAA pilot to an open water diver. Some are for diesel engines, hydraulics, pneumatics, and one for being an on-scene incident commander. When Rusty asked me to give you a short briefing about safety over the pumping stations, I wasn't really sure where to start. So I asked the question to some friends, what do you think the biggest safety issue might be at the pumping station? I got many different answers. Everything from, y'all have to keep the city safe from flooding. Now, while we do an excellent job at that, that was not what I was looking for. Yet another reply was, you guys just move water from point A to point B. I realized that the answers that I was getting was not what I was looking for, and the reason I was having trouble finding the topic was that safety had been ingrained into me to the point that it had become second nature. So I'd like to take this time to walk you through a few examples of our daily activities at the pumping station. We work 4/10s. We start at 6 a.m. Most of the crew gets to the station 30 to 35 minutes early. We have coffee and breakfast at the kitchen table in the safe house. And during this time of light conversation actually serves two purposes. It helps keep everyone from starting the day distracted, and also gives the supervisors a way to evaluate the crew. We look for a team member that may be tired from a rough night, or who may have personal issues that might need to be addressed outside of the group, so that their focus is solely on the task at hand. At 6 a.m., the supervisor takes the safety a step further and completes the agency mandatory COVID testing. With everything good at this point, we go over the assignments for the day. These are usually written on a dry erase board behind the table where everyone can see. Whether it be greasing the bearings of 48 exhaust fans that are over 25 feet off the floor in the generator building, or requiring an aerial lift, or rotating 15,000 gallons of off-road diesel from the day tanks to the bulk tanks to be polished. Each job task is gone over in detail. After each one of the assignments are given out, we have an open JSA discussion. This can range from extra PPE that is needed to common things like pinch points and safety zones around the aerial lift. Excuse me. Last but not certainly least, emergency procedures should there be a problem to minimize the incident. Before work starts, each team member evaluates their PPE to be used. For example, fall arrest harnesses will be inspected for tears or fraying, dirt, correct operating latches, proper tags, labels, anything that would compromise the safety use of the device. Next, any tools for the job will also be inspected for damage and wear. Then an assessment of the work zone for any hazards that might be present. Once the work starts, every team member knows that at any point of the day, anything doesn't look right, feel right, or raises any type of red flag in their mind, they have the right and the responsibility to stop the job and have a formal written JSA done before any work continues. Upon completion of the work, the completed job is assessed and inspected by the leading supervisor, as well as any equipment, tools that was used for the job. This is to prevent unknowingly using potential damaged tools or equipment in the future. If any damaged tools or equipment are discovered, they're taken out of service immediately. A debriefing discussion is also held at the end of the day to discuss any issues such as, but not limited to, tools, safety, equipment, levels of difficulty involved, and if any manpower was insignificant. I hope I have given you just enough insight for you to become curious to come visit the pumping station. I can go into greater detail on daily operations and safety. I'd like to extend a personal invitation to any and all commissioners who would like to tour the pumping station and even see it in operation. We test and run the pumps the first Tuesday of every month, and you can schedule a tour through Kim or Colleen. For the calendar year 2020, we had 0 injuries. Excuse me. We had 0 injuries and 0 incidences at the pumping station. I would like to take this time to give a heartfelt thank you to my crew this year for really trying, as they could not beat the old record. They were only able to tie it. 0 instances, 0 injuries. And I'll open up the floor at this time if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. That was a great presentation, but do we have, if you see an incident, who do you report it to?
To my supervisor, Darren Austin.
Okay, that's good. Rick, you got a question?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity to tour the pumping station a couple of weeks ago. That was really informative. I enjoyed the opportunity, and I could tell that you and your crew take great pride in the operations of that station, and it was great for me to be able to see it firsthand in operation, and learned a lot. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
I want to thank him also. He He's patient and spent half a day with me. We went through in detail all the parts that make up the pumping station in preparation for our asset management system, how they all fit together, how they do their workflow and their work orders and maintain things, and it was really great. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, if there's anything you can do to suggest that we can extend your success to other parts of the agency, we'd certainly welcome your input. So appreciate it. And we've been doing these safety minutes for probably almost a year now. And I appreciate everybody doing that. And I think our culture is starting to slowly change and we're making an impact to our mission.
I can tell you, after working with the workman's compensation insurance, it is making an impact.
I bet it is.
We got less incidents. And by the way, if you're the electrician on that project over there, you're a genius. I got like a gazillion generators down there from Caterpillar that.
Yeah, that's correct. 15, 3.1 megawatts at 17th Street, along with a little 480 volt generator.
It's huge.
Right.
Impressive.
All right, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. Please be safe on your travels this holiday, and y'all have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Opening comments, I guess I'll start here. Traditionally or historically, we have not had a December meeting, but we've always had an issue with insurance, and that is raising its ugly head. So we may have to have a meeting in December. We don't necessarily have to have it on the scheduled day. We're going to see when our insurance company comes back with property insurance is getting to be a problem for us. We were going to try to prorate to April 1st, and everybody agreed to do that except for our property carrier and maybe our cyber, but cyber we can address independently. But so we may have to have a December meeting. It could be an emergency meeting or something just to address that one issue once it's addressed. The other thing about it, that we're going to probably start in the near future remodeling this. So if you want to invite us into your home for a board meeting or whatever, we certainly we'll find a place to have a board meeting, and but it will not be here probably from January through March, depending on schedule when they are able to get this place shaped up. So anyway, anybody else have any comments? Oh, Herb?
Okay. Prior to the October board meeting, I sent an email to all commissioners requesting that they not discuss the hiring of Regional Director Carol Chandler in my absence and the absence of our current president, Mark Morgan. Mark and I were most directly involved in the selection process, and it would have been proper for us to be present to respond to any questions and correct any misinformation that was put forth. 3 commissioners chose to ignore that request. 2 of the commissioners, Mr. Arago and Mr. Joannan, to their credit, had expressed their concerns to me months ago, and neither brought up anything that they had not previously discussed with me. Both simply expressed concerns about the selection process, noting that they would have done things differently had they been in my position. I did not find their comments to be offensive, and while I am prepared to discuss them, I do not see any need to take up the board's time with that. Prior to the October meeting, Mr. Kosei had never spoken to me about this matter. Instead, he chose to publicly attack me in my absence, denying me an opportunity to defend myself against his slanderous and defamatory comments. He also chose to attack Ms. Chandler's qualifications and character. I usually do not respond to personal attacks. In my 25 years in public service, I have found that doing so seldom leads to an apology, even when the attacker is clearly shown to be wrong. Even when the attacks are made in public and full of self-serving misinformation and half-truths, such as the comments by Mr. Kosei against me and Ms. Chandler at the October board meeting, I don't like wasting my time responding. Often responding to these attacks results in other unfounded attacks. Whether these attacks were done by Mr. Kosei with intentional malice or just out of plain ignorance, I cannot say. What I will say is that his accusations of my having committed an illegal act, his comments that Ms. Chandler is unqualified for her position, and his views expressed that I had no authority to appoint her to her present position are all completely inaccurate. I do want to thank Commissioner Duplessis for his comments at the meeting in setting the record straight. I could spend my time here with a robust defense of my actions and Ms. Chandler's qualifications. I am prepared to do so, and I am confident that it would put to rest Mr. Kosei's accusations and demonstrate his total hypocrisy regarding this matter. However, I realize that commissioners recognize the value that Kelly Chandler has brought to her new position as regional director and are ready to move on from the controversy that Mr. Kosei has attempted to create regarding her appointment. Accordingly, unless Mr. Kosei continues with his irresponsible attacks, I will let these allegations die the death they so very much deserve.
Thank you. Clay?
I gotta say one thing. The font's real good on this.
You can read it.
You can read it without my glasses.
Is this your statement or are you?
No, it's not.
No, okay.
It is my statement, but I want to read it into the record.
Okay.
Gentlemen, the action taken by our past president to hire a regional director was illegal and violated both state and the bylaws of this authority that was set forth in 2007. He polled commissioners, clearly violating the Open Meetings Law. He ignored all the guidelines and rules set forth by this authority regarding the hiring of a regional director. The person he anointed meets none of the engineering and technical qualifications required by law. He ignored our own bylaws, which state the board sets the salary and then grants a salary of a whopping $170,000 to a person with no experience who meets none of the qualifications required. It goes downhill from here. Turns out, as reported in the media outlets, the person he hires has a police record in the state of Georgia involving a DUI, multiple drugs, and inhalants. The same person who at the time was working in our finance department subsequently wires $51,000 of public tax money to an unknown account in Georgia, never to be found. Then a cover-up takes place, which is yet to be explained. Then, as regional director, one of our first acts was to fire our police chief. Her reason was that he's undermining me. The chief, by the way, was doing a fine job, received high marks, and was respected by myself as well as his officers. To make matters worse, our current president allowed this to happen. His defense, I'm supporting my regional director. Back to our past president, Mr. Miller. Sir, could you explain how you could take it upon yourself to single-handedly make such an important decision without any discussion or participation from the full board? You took this action the day after our March 18th meeting of the board. You knew then what you were going to do, and not a word was mentioned. In closing, gentlemen, we have been charged with the awesome responsibility of providing flood protection for a region of almost 1 million people. Flood protection has no place for unqualified directors and with no experience. I understand we all have jobs. We only meet once a month, and some of us may not be as tuned in as we'd like to be. All the more reason the need for experience in this important position, as I've been told in a number of high places, this is not going to go away. It's not going to be swept under the rug. So let's make the corrections needed. It's been made clear to me, if we don't make these corrections, the state legislature will. Mark, I've worked with you for the last 5 years. And you don't want this to be your legacy, man. Do something. Lead. Be a leader, okay? This is wrong. You know it's wrong. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, point of personal privilege. Mr. Kosei has asked me to explain my actions, and I would like the opportunity to do so.
How about?
Is that acceptable?
Yes, sir.
Acceptable to the board? Cue up the short. Where's our IT guys? Cue up the small presentation. Just go to the first page. Mr. Kosei, let me ask you a question first. You have accused me of violating the open meetings law. When did you come to the determination in your mind that I violated the open meetings law?
Because you pulled me, sir. You pulled me over the phone and
When I
wanted to know
pulled you
how I
over the
would
phone
vote.
at that time? Okay, so back then.
Next question.
Okay, that's fine. That's a good answer. It's actually an answer I hope to get. Thank you. So you're accusing me of illegal activity for polling the board. And this is the type of thing that if I'm doing something illegal by polling the board, the people who participate in that, by definition, are also doing something illegal. And what you've just admitted to is that you knowingly participated in an activity that you knew to be illegal. Now, the fact is it was not illegal, but if it was, then there are 7 members on this board who are all guilty of that violation. But let me explain to you why it wasn't illegal. You did point out at the last meeting that I sent an email that said we were going to hold an executive session to discuss this matter. And after I sent that email, I was notified that it could not be discussed in executive session because it did not deal with a particular individual's personnel matter. It was just a general discussion of something that's going on. The second thing I was notified was that the decision to hire the regional director was mine and mine alone. Now, I know that you disagree with that, and we're going to cover that a little bit later. But that's what I was told. And I was told that by our legal counsel, Ms. Michelle White. So with that in mind, I had a choice. I could just proceed willy-nilly, or I could try to get a sense of where the board was. It's not a vote. I didn't have to abide by whatever decision the majority wanted. They could all have wanted to go one way, and I had authority to go absolutely the other. But as it turned out, I did talk to most. I'm not even sure I talked to all the commissioners. I did talk to most of them, you included. In fact, we had 2 conversations about it. So you're double guilty if this is in fact a crime. But the majority that I talked to, by the time I talked to several of them, indicated they wanted to go in-house, and that's really what I wanted to do. So I made it the decision to proceed accordingly. You know, this is not, I'll admit, the first time and only time I ever polled the board.
Oh, so you
In fact, may I finish?
You admit you pulled the board.
May I finish? May I finish?
You just admitted it.
It was a poll of opinion, not a vote. Not a vote. I polled the board in April. I asked them, do we want to leave these petitions up? And I even said, if one commissioner objects to that, these stay up. It could have been 8 commissioners say take them down and 1 say leave them up. There was 1 commissioner who initially opposed taking them down. Now, I called him and said, look, you're the only guy and they're going to stay up. And he responded to me that, hey, I really don't care that much about them. They can come down. And if you look at the May meeting, these petitions weren't up. They went back up during the Delta variant. But had 1 commissioner, or I actually polled Ms. Glenda and Ms. Kelly as well, if anybody objected, they would have stayed up, regardless of what the vote of the board, if you want to call it a vote, was. Now, You do recall participating, and as I said, we actually had two
I
conversations.
don't recall participating.
Mr., hold on.
You
Mr.
called
Kosei,
me, and I said I wanted no
Mr.
part of it.
Kosei, this is my time. You will have an opportunity to respond, but in fact, you did participate, and what you said,
I answered the phone.
Mr. Kosei, you were on the phone for 6 minutes with me. I have the phone records right here.
Probably trying to talk
You were on
about
the phone for 6 minutes with me one time and 2 minutes another, and I will tell you what you said.
Clay,
You did, in fact,
Let him finish.
want to go out for an advertisement, did you not?
Yeah,
You did, so you admit that you said that?
yeah.
So you didn't just hang up the phone? But what was interesting was why you said you wanted to go out. Because you wanted me to hire a specific individual that you named to put in that position, not to go make some national search. You had a particular person that you asked me to hire. I told you I wasn't going to hire that person. Now, I can give you that person's name if you want, but I'd rather not at this point. But I'm willing to do so. So let's go to Kelly's qualifications. There's a little deeper here. I think, there we go. I see that that's a little bit hard to read. At the last meeting, Mr. Kosei, you passed out some handouts to the commissioners, and one of them was the requirements for being a regional director. There are no specific requirements for being a regional director that are in our bylaws, but there is a state law that does cover that. There are things in our bylaws that we're going to discuss later regarding the selection of a regional commissioner. But at this point, let's look at the qualifications. So that's, why didn't, no. I need to jump to the next slide. There we go. First qualification that's in these requirements is that the regional director reside in Southeast Louisiana. Ms. Chandler lives in New Orleans, so she does meet that qualification. If we can get this thing to work here. Yeah. If you can just click it one more time, it stays on that slide. It's, okay, the second one is that you have a bachelor's degree at a minimum in the area of business, engineering, geology, hydrology, natural sciences, environmental sciences, renewable resources, or similar academic field. Click it again, please. Ms. Chandler has both a bachelor's and master's degree in finance, which is a specialized branch of the business school. It actually requires more advanced math than a business degree. So she meets the requirement of having a bachelor's degree in the area of business. One more time, please. They have a minimum of 10 years senior experience in business, or in engineering or hydrology, or in the performance of public work functions. Well, flip again. Ms. Chandler spent 10 years as the administrator and controller of the state of Louisiana firefighters retirement system. She also spent 2 years in that role with the police retirement system and has 4.5 years of supervisory experience in the fire department here. That's 16.5 years of senior experience. She meets every single requirement that's required. Now, you've made a big issue of the fact that I hired her at $170,000 a year. What is interesting is that the newspaper article reported that her salary before that was $105,000 a year. Totally and completely inaccurate. Now, the reporter that to my knowledge, only talked to 4 people. Mr. Morgan and myself, Mr. Joanne and you. I assure you that Mr. Morgan, you did not talk to him, okay. So I assure you Mr. Morgan and I did not give him that information. So I'm wondering where he got it from. But the fact of the matter is, when Ms. Chandler was hired back in 2016, her salary then was more than $105,000 a year. So let's look at the history of what happened with the hiring of regional directors in the past. The first executive director, by the way, his title was Regional Executive Director, not Regional Director. Sort of decided it doesn't really matter. Go to the next slide, please.
I think you need to go backwards.
Not that one. Let's see. They may have called up the wrong slide. Go back
Plus
some.
one with the money on it.
Bob Turner was hired
Right there,
for
right there. That's where I want.
$135,000 a year.
That one.
First one.
Yeah,
Right there. The first executive director, when he was hired, oh, by the way, just for the record, this national search that was done to hire the first regional director, that Mr. Kosei is so proud of announcing as a national search, ended up selecting an employee of the Flood Protection Authority as its regional director. And his salary prior to his selection was right at $90,000 a year. Upon being hired as executive director, his salary jumped to $135,000 a year, an increase of $45,000 and representing a 50% increase in his prior salary. Ms. Chandler's salary was $132,000. It was raised to $171,000. This is a $38,000 increase and a 29% increase in her salary. When you hire someone into a new position, they are due the salary that that position calls for, plain and simple. You don't just keep them at their same salary or give them a 2% raise. They are due the salary that they are entitled to. Prior to his resignation at the end of 2018, actually in February of 2019, the other regional director was making $166,254. His average salary increase between 2013 and 2018 was about a little over 3.4%. He assumed he was going to get that salary increase in 2019, 2020, and 2021. His salary would have been $183,000 a year. So paying Ms. Chandler $170 is not out of line. In fact, it is actually $10,000 less than what we were paying Derek Bays for a similar position. Now, you made some comments that I did not originally plan to discuss regarding the $51,000 scam that was pulled on us and Ms. Chandler's DUIs. I really don't want to discuss these, but I will because you brought them up. I think everyone who was on the commission at the time and every commissioner here probably feels we should have been notified about that. I agree with that. I have since been told that the people who were notified about it was obviously Ms. Kelly, the CAO, the police chief, the then board president, our IT director, our insurance agent, and the FBI. And there was a reason that they chose not to make that public. They didn't want other hackers to know about it and make similar attempts. Again, I believe that the commissioners should have been told about it, and I think they would have understood at that time the need to keep it quiet had they been notified. This was a very sophisticated attack. When the attack occurred, neither Ms. Chandler nor our former CAO, Mr. Bays, questioned it, the request. But Kelly did question it, and she asked the guy for other information, which he provided. Now, let me be clear before you accuse me of otherwise, I was not the president at the time. And even though the CAO did suggest that she go ahead and pay it, she did inquire in a follow-up email, which the scammer provided, and prior to her authorizing that payment. A few months later, she got a similar request. And she realized it was a scam. She did not try to cover it up. Instead, she reported it to the CAO, the board president, our former police chief, and the FBI. This guy was good. The FBI never found him. In 2018, the year that the scam took place, the Federal Trade Commission reported nearly $1.5 billion was paid to scammers, with imposter scamming being the most prevalent form of successful scams. We always recognized that was a possibility. It's why we had insurance against it. And our insurance reimbursed us for about half of that cost. So at the end of the day, what we lost was about $25,000. Since that time, we have raised our insurance coverage to protect against any future such scam. Kelly and the CEO made a mistake, but they did the right thing by reporting this to the police chief and the FBI. They did not try to cover it up. Now, I think everybody here would love to get a check for $26,500 at the end of the year tax-free. No question about it. But what was its actual impact on the Flood Protection Authority? This loss represented 3/100ths of 1% of our 2018 expenses. Am I disappointed that it happened? Yes. Did it impact our operations? No. And afterwards, we've taken steps to minimize the possibility of it happening again. Had they been aware of it at the time, I don't think the board would have taken any disciplinary action against either Ms. Chandler or Mr. Bays. What is interesting for me to know, is that our former chief knew about this and was one of the people who agreed not to disclose it so that we would not be subjected to other attacks. But he decided to release it after he resigned. If you'll excuse me a moment, I have some paperwork to hand out to the board. As you look at these, look at the comments that have double starred by them. You look at the ones that have single stars as well.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not going to read this into the record because it's in the personnel file, but I will tell you that the information in here has been verified by multiple sources, and it was this type of information that led to Ms. Chandler approaching the president and providing him that information with the backup supporting documents. And it was the president that gave Ms. Chandler the authority, in fact, basically the orders to either allow the chief to resign or to dismiss him. I like the chief. I think he did a lot of really good things for us. And I was sorry to see him go. And when I heard he resigned, I called and did this investigation to find out why. And I think it is very clear that if any other board members wish to investigate and see the other information that is available, I think you would come to the same conclusion that it was time for him to go. Let me be very clear for the public that the chief had not committed any criminal activity. That was not the reason for his dismissal. It was other factors that led to that decision. Hit the next slide, please. Let's talk about what you want to talk about, which is my ability to appoint the regional director. Now, during your tenure on the board, Mr. Kosei, most of which coincides with mine, the president of the board made all of these appointments and set all of the salaries. And if you go to the minutes of those meetings, you will see that in each and every case, an announcement was simply made by the president that he had appointed these individuals. There was no comment by you or any other commissioners objecting to that. So if you look at this board, Mr. Kosei, did you object to any of these appointments? By the president? You had no objection to it? Huh?
I have no idea.
Well, you can,
I don't know if I did or I didn't.
okay, you can look at the minutes, and I assure you the minutes show that there was no objection by you or any other commissioner to a single one of these appointments made by the president with the salary set by the president. Now, I know we don't have time to go through that, and I'm sure you will go back and look at the minutes, but you will find that these were announcements that were made. The finance director was and all of these other people. Some of these were announced by the president, some by the actual vice president in the president's absence. Some of these announcements in the later years were actually announced by the CAO during his reports. But every one of these were announced at the meeting. Every single one of these were hired by the president without board approval, and every single one of these had the salary set by the president. Now, in fact, Mr. Kosei, regarding the CAO appointment, again, there were no public comments made about that, and there's nothing in our bylaws or anything that set any requirements or any qualifications for the CAO. Are you aware of anything in our bylaws that say anything about setting up qualifications for the CAO?
I'm sure we discussed it.
There is none. I have the bylaws here. I'll be happy to let you look through them. Believe me, I have. There's nothing in our bylaws that cover that. Now, flip to the next slide, please. You actually stated in the meeting that the position of CAO was actually repositioned to the top of the org chart. And in reality, in 2017, when our then regional director was loaned to the Sewage and Water Board and retired in 2019, these were your words, I think it's on page 3 of our minutes from the last meeting, that the CAO had morphed into the position of regional director. Do you recall making that statement? Okay. And that would have been in October 2017 when Mr. Turner was loaned to Sewage and Water Board, correct? Correct. Now, he resigned in 2019 to work full-time for Sewage and Water Board, so the position of regional director has been vacant from that time until Ms. Chandler's appointment. So neither the board nor the president took any action to fill that position. Now, in the announcement that I sent to the board in appointing Ms. Chandler, in my email of March 19th, I stated, the position of Chief Administrative Officer will be changed to Regional Director in accordance with the state statute. We will no longer have both a CAO and Regional Director. It will be one job, having responsibilities currently handled by Mr. Derek Bays. In addition, flip to the next slide, please. In the press release, it states, the title of Chief Administrative Officer currently held by Derek Bays will be retired and the responsibilities transferred to the Regional Director. Mr. Kosei, I have a confession to make here. I made a mistake. I should have appointed her CAO. And all of this nonsense that you're raising regarding what's in the resolutions and ordinances and past actions would have had absolutely no bearing on anything, because there's nothing in our ordinances or our bylaws that would have restricted me from doing that. And it's an action that the previous president took without any objection from you. So I apologize to Ms. Chandler for my making that mistake. But let's go to the bylaws. It's something you really like to talk about. Now, flip up the next page. This is just sort of an interesting aside. Doesn't have a lot to do with this, but what no, go back. There we go, right there. This is actually in our bylaws. I had Our lady here confirmed that these are the bylaws. And what it says is that the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority, et cetera, following levee districts and parishes: East Jefferson, Lake Borgne, Orleans, St. Tammany, and Tangipahoa. That is still in our bylaws. Obviously, it's a mistake. Obviously, our bylaws need some adjustment. And that doesn't have anything to do with the motion at hand. I just thought it was interesting to point out that our bylaws aren't exactly 100% accurate. Would you flip to the next slide, please? Now, this slide covers the duties of the president. This is in our bylaws. And the duties of our president include the following: to appoint members and designate, to act as appointing authority for all employees of the authority. Not some employees, not a few employees, all employees of the authority, and to have all other executive powers necessary and proper for a president of the Flood Protection Authority. Now, the article that you like to talk about, flip to the next slide, please, regards a regional director. And it does say the board may hire a regional director who shall serve at the pleasure of the board. In addition to the qualifications prescribed by law, which we went over earlier, the board shall fix the qualifications, duties, and salaries. Well, there are no actions by the board to fix the qualifications, duties, and salaries for that. So we have a conflict. There's a conflict in our bylaws. One says the president has the responsibility for hiring everybody, and the other says the board can hire a regional director. So how do we resolve this conflict? Well, again, it was the legal opinion of our in-house counsel that this was the president. But here's the kicker, Mr. Kosei. When you have a conflict, sometimes you have to rely on precedent. Would you flip to the next slide, please? These are also in our bylaws. The board may hire one or more attorneys to represent it, and the board may hire one or more engineers as it deems appropriate. You just said earlier, Mr. Kosei, you did not protest the hiring of our attorney by the board president and his setting of the salary. You did not protest the hiring of our chief engineer by the president and the setting of his board salary. You're only protesting it under Ms. Kelly. You are a total hypocrite. I'm done, Mr. President.
All right. Oh, hopefully you don't have anything to say. Clay.
No, I just want to point out that, I'm going to stand by my statement.
Okay.
I didn't have the privilege of having Mr. Mr. Duplantier write such a long diatribe, but anyway,
All right.
I could go down all those points, and I got a counter for every one. If I'm wrong, sue me, man, sue me, okay? Yeah.
All right.
But
Mr. Kosei.
I'd like to get my one question answered that I asked Mr. Miller, and that is, why did you wait till the day after our meeting to go behind closed doors and do your dastardly deeds by hiring an unqualified person for this important position? Why didn't you bring it up at that meeting, sir? Answer me that question.
I'm going to answer you, Mr. Kosei. Once a decision was made to go in-house with the hire, two candidates came forward, Ms. Chandler and I don't think you'll mind saying it, Mr. Humphreys. I asked Mr. Bays at that time, are there any other people within our organization that you feel we should be interviewing? He told me no. So again, recognizing the decision was mine and mine alone, I did not want to wait. Now, You made a comment at the last board meeting that there was no rush, no need to have a head. I disagree with that statement entirely. An organization without a head is like a snake with its head cut off. It may move around for a little while, but eventually it's going to die. Who's going to run the staff meetings? Who's going to come give us the annual report? Who's going to report to the 20 different national and international news agencies that called us for comment during Hurricane Ida? Who is going to do all the things that the boss of an organization has to do? Who's going to settle the internal disputes among directors? We need a head. Now, the other argument you might make is, well, you could have appointed somebody temporarily. Had I done that, you would have been pushing for someone else to get the job in the interim. Mr. Joannan, who had actually told Mr. Humphrey, I believe you may recall, telling him you hoped he got the job. You may not recall that, but you do. You do recall saying that, okay. So if somebody's in that position temporarily, you have this dynamic of people, other people who want the job or want somebody else,
And her, my intention.
or want somebody else to have the job, having all this infighting going on. So I felt, Mr. Joannan, may I finish? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was my impression at the time, because of my ignorance of how the process works,
Yeah.
that because Derek left, you know, we didn't see it coming, at least that was the appearance I had, right? Derek may have known about this for a long time personally, but we, at least this person, me, I can only speak for myself, didn't know about it until the die was cast. And so with regards to a replacement, internally or externally, I have always thought that we would always get the best qualified person internally or externally. If there was an internal person that was best qualified for the job moving forward permanently, great. Externally, great. But as an interim measure, you know, because I didn't know Kelly, I knew Chris, I knew what value he brought to the table, I knew his vast experience. You know, I hoped that he would be the one. That was all it was.
Yeah.
And when I read the bylaws at the time, before I talked to you the day after our St. Bernard meeting, I thought, I was under the impression that difference, that conflict that you pointed out earlier,
Right.
which is there. I mean, we've got to, you know, not everything's perfect. Not all bylaws are perfect. You know, that's our job to interpret those, but that you would appoint somebody. To me, that's just my ignorance. I think when you appoint somebody, it comes before the board, and then we decide whether or not that's a good appointment or not. Okay. That never occurred, and that was my only angst with any of this, right? And so you know, with regards to all of this, this has become so divisive that I believe it is monopolized so much of our time that should be spent on things that are way more important than this. The way to resolve this is we go back to the process. If the process isn't what we want it to be, then we change the process, change the bylaws, make an above board, transparent change to it. But for us to, you know, I think we all have the best intentions. I really do. I believe that. So if that's the case, we don't need to be slicing and dicing and pointing fingers and all that. We need to come together. You know, I was hoping that we wouldn't have an open forum here where I can show my ignorance of the process, because I do, but I'm asking basic questions that have been asked of me, the general public, and I don't answer them. I can't. I'm not equipped to do that. So I don't like the way the process played out this time. I think it should have been, if it was a surprise, especially that Derek said, oh, I'm leaving tomorrow. Well, okay, we got to find somebody. For example, I'd like to know, and this is getting off topic, but what if Kelly has to go for some reason?
Sorry, we're what?
What if Kelly would have to step down for one reason or another, personal or professional, whatever? What's our process for the next person in line? She's not, hope you live as long as possible. She's not going to live forever, right? Somebody's going to have to replace her, and other board members will be here. What are they going to follow? If it's ambiguous today, it's going to be ambiguous tomorrow if we don't do something about it. So I think that
It's not in-
instead of us being divisive in our leadership, we need to be inclusive in our leadership and include the opinions of all these folks that are here. That's all. And
Can I-
if it's not our right to have a say-so in those positions,
It's not.
I think we need to change that. That's all I have to say about that.
Mr. Joanne, and you had,
Can I talk for a minute? Because we need to stop this conversation. We're gonna move on. There is no conflict in our bylaws. The process is very clear. As I explained at the last meeting, two things. Number one, the board decides to have a regional director and decides what the qualifications are. Once that decision is made, the bylaws are very clear that the president becomes the appointing authority. But more importantly than that, as Herb just established, the way it's been handled in the past, no, I didn't.
No, because this is the point of contention right there. What if the appointment meets with disagreement from the majority of the board? Or the
Well,
board
there is
doesn't
a
agree with
process
that?
there is a process in the bylaws to change there's a process. If you don't like the decision of the president, look at the bylaws. If you don't agree with the decision of the president, the commissioners can vote by a 3/4 majority to overturn the appointment by the president. It's in the bylaws. There is none of you have done this. No. We're not timing out.
Gene, may I answer you for
Before
just a moment?
started, I asked for an executive session, and you said, Gene, we can't do that.
Gene, may I,
All right,
Again,
we've gone long enough, Herb. I think you made your points, and Clay has, and Rick and Gene, but the bottom line, I believe, as you presented,
one
you made.
more comment I want to make, please. Gene, I take no exception to anything you said. You're expressing an opinion, and you're entitled to that opinion, and other people may share that opinion. I did nothing wrong. I did what I thought was right. Mr. Morgan has asked me not to finish defending myself, and I will do that. I am more than willing to meet with you. Anyone else that wants to meet and go through the rest of the hiring process, I'll be happy to take them through it. I understand your frustration, and if there is something that we need to change, I'm open to a discussion of how the board moves forward in the next one. But one of the reasons, there were 3 good reasons that I had decided to hire Kelly, and not Chris. And believe me, Chris is extremely well qualified. And Mr. Morgan and I were in those interviews, and we came out of there saying, I cannot make a mistake. If I hire either one of these people, we've got a good person. And the 3 things that changed it was, one of those was what you just mentioned. Mr. Humphreys told us he was going to be leaving in 3 to 5 years. And I didn't want to put this board in a position to have to do this all over again in 3 to 5 years. The second reason that worked in her favor was, as finance director, she took it upon herself to go out in the field. This came out in the interview. Go out in the field and meet with each one of our crews and find out what they did. I've known a lot of really good finance directors in my life. I've never known one that took that kind of initiative. And the third thing, and a very important factor, was that Derek Bays, the current CAO, highly recommended her. And those were the 3 factors that were the deciding factor in my mind. I would have been thrilled to have Mr. Humphreys. He's an excellent manager. He's an excellent engineer. He would have done a great job. And it was a really, really tough decision. I didn't just decide in 3 seconds. I talked it over with Mr. Morgan, and I said, who would you pick? And to his credit, he just looked at me and said, not my choice, it's yours. So that's what happened. And again, Mr. Joanne, I take no exception to anything you're saying. You're expressing your opinion, and you're certainly entitled to that.
I think given the circumstances, it should have been for an interim position, that's all.
All right, thank you.
Can I just ask that in the future, if these types of discussions are going to occur, that the commissioner put it on the agenda and not blindsided? This is 2 meetings in a row where we've been blindsided by Mr. Kosi, and I'm tired of it. I'd like to move on to flood authority business.
Yes.
I don't know what you mean by blindsided. You had about 20 pages of notes there that you put together.
I-
Yes, you did. Yes, you
Okay.
did. That's all
All right,
you,
all
man.
right, hey.
Got you all over it.
Okay,
Okay.
well, all right, let's
Sit in
move on
and
now.
say you got blindsided. That's a joke.
I didn't write one word of his presentation.
Maybe next time I'll take public comments by me and commissioners off the agenda. Anyway, moving on. Public comments. Does anybody wish to make a comment on the comments so far? Anyway, I have no card, so. All right, no comments, presentations, there are none. Report by a regional director.
Oh, let's do something boring. Good morning.
Good morning, or afternoon now.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. The first thing I want to do is welcome Ms. Kenyatta Sewell. Ms. Sewell is our new HR director. She started Monday, and I congratulated her on starting during a board week because it would be quite entertaining, and it has been. I would like you to know a little bit about her. She has worked in the human resources industry for over 17 years. Most recently, she served as HR director for the LA Special School District, where she headed the HR function for the merger of school districts and implemented numerous efficiency initiatives. As human resources director for the Louisiana Lottery Corporation, her responsibilities included the development and implementation of policies, procedures, and strategic initiatives. And as deputy undersecretary for the Louisiana State Civil Service, she directed the development of the budget and annual financial report, monitored revenue and expenditures, wrote agency contracts, participated in the development of the strategic plan, and provided oversight of the human resources function for state civil service, the Board of Ethics, and the Division of Administrative Law. In 2017, Kenyatta earned the SHRM designation, and she currently serves on the East Baton Rouge Personnel Board, and until recently, she served on the Board of Directors for Greater Baton Rouge SHRM as chairperson for the Workforce Readiness Committee and committee member for training and development for the Baton Rouge Junior League. So please welcome Ms. Kenyatta. Okay, the next part, I'm going to go real quickly because Rusty stole my thunder with his presentation at the Operations Committee. This is the debris removal information that he presented. This slide is kind of old, but I wanted to bring it to the board's attention about how significant the debris removal is. Rusty covered it very, very well, and that's an ongoing contract. Oh, well, this was the cool part that Rusty saw my thunder on because I was really interested in the drones and using that for seeding. Hopefully they're going to do that again, and I'm going to go out with Roger and the team and watch the drone and see if that would benefit us in the future. I think drones are, like Gene said, the wave of the future, and we have 5 licensed operators that we could really utilize this technology. I want to give an update on the asset management project. If you recall, we're merging lots of different systems into one. This is a major, major project. This is a project that I'm loaded the chart of accounts, the vendors, the customers, intercompany transactions, and all of that is loaded in finance and is live. And so finance is now maintaining 2 systems as far as vendors and customers and chart of accounts and all those things. We're working on the asset list for the maintenance, and we've partnered with engineering. We've completed all the linear assets, all the gates. We are working on PCCP. That's where I spent time with Darren Nichols getting all the assets for PCCP, and we expect all of those hopefully to be done by the next 30 days. And our go-live date is still targeted for July 1st, but that's going very, very well. I'm really excited about that project and how it will benefit the agency. Police. Just a quick update, the police transition is going extremely well. We held a meeting with Harbor Police about how they do detail administration. They have a department similar in our size, whereas Jefferson Parish and NOPD, there's been comments that have been made that said, why recreate the wheel? Go see how somebody else does it. Well, no agencies do it alike. They're all different, and they all have different circumstances, and it depends on the type of detail it is. If it's with another government agency versus a private organization, all makes a difference. But we had a great discussion with them. We came back and they gave us some guidance on writing a policy for details, which two of our officers have worked on. We've completed a draft. I gave them minutes, and then we're going to finalize that. And while we were there, I realized that our Orleans police handwrite all of their dispatch. And it's all paper driven and it's very duplicative. So we looked at their system and we had a demonstration and for an automated dispatch system. And the cost is very minimal. I think it's like $11,000, between $10,000 and $20,000. And we could automate all that system for our officers. We also have been having captains meetings every week. Those meetings have been very long. They last several hours, but they've been very, very good. We learn how each of the departments work together, and we've started talking about the need to update our operating guidelines because they're very, very dated. So it's going very well, and I thank the captains for stepping up and really leading their teams. So that's my presentation for the day, subject to your questions.
Well, just keep us informed of the insurance.
Oh, yeah, insurance. Let me cover that. I'm glad you mentioned that. We did have, as Mark mentioned earlier, we're trying to extend all of our insurance renewal dates to April 1st, which is before storm season, but not on that January 1 renewal date when everybody's trying to do it. Most have already extended. The ones that we haven't are property and auto. As Mark mentioned, property is expected to go up it was an annual increase around 35% or more, given the record number of storms in 2020 and with the losses from Ida. If we were to just do an extension, it would be like a 15% increase. So we're waiting to get final numbers for that. The insurance company, Arthur Gallagher, has recommended that we do an annual renewal, but we are evaluating that, and when we get that information in December sometime, we will bring that before the board if it's a substantial difference.
Good. All right, any additional questions? None? All right, committee reports. Finance.
We did not have a meeting today. We didn't have anything that needed to be addressed, but no, I want to make sure the commissioners understand there's a reason we were extending the insurances so we can follow our budget a little bit better. That's a 15% increase past what we're already paying, and then we would have to renew in April, I think it is. The potential jump by April, according to our brokers, could be 40 to 50%. And that is in the basis of what is being paid out in Ida. And because there's huge losses for that. So we may just wait and renew instead of extending it.
Yeah, we pay about $500,000 a year in property, so a 40% increase would cost us $200,000.
And we may be raising deductibles to offset some of that or something, but it's a significant number. Pronto's coming together good, as she reported. John, our temporary, has been a big help in moving that through, and I want to thank John for his work with us this year. You did a great job, and we appreciate you stepping in and helping out with that. With that said, that completes my report.
All right. And Operations Committee, Mr. Weesham.
Yes, we met earlier today. We had several new business on the hand, and we approved pretty much all of them.
Okay, and you can address them as we come to them. All right.
Yes, we
Good.
had a couple speakers.
Coastal Committee, Chair, Joan.
We did meet today, and we discussed projects that are taking place around our system that are coastal related. Highlighted the fact that there's a lot of money coming down the pike, as they say. Just about everybody's kind of, including yourself, Mark, have sent me emails, hey, take a look at this, look what these guys are getting, what are they? And everybody's got a project, and I think it's great, and I was actually gonna have a guest today who couldn't make it today, but he's coming with a posse of folks that are all keen on not just the projects that we know about, but projects that may be on the horizon and needs can get behind more of as a role of, as an advocate and in some cases even, you know, to participate in the infrastructure bill that's coming down, environmental justice with some of the projects to our south. And if we have our meeting in December, I'll have kind of a cast of characters here to discuss these projects, kind of a more of a casual question and answer and presentation on that. And then from that, I hope we can kind of set the tone for 2022, what the Coastal Committee can do. So that's.
Good, thank you.
I have a question for Gene. Gene, the gentleman who was going to speak today looked like he had a very interesting topic. Do you think that might be something that he would be willing to present to the entire board rather than just your committee and would be beneficial for us?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe, and I'll ask him, you know, look, I'm open to that. I'd love that. I mean, you could maybe even stay over. We still have our coastal meeting, and then maybe the more salient topics can be discussed in the regular meeting.
Yeah, I think the board might be interested in it.
Oh, yeah.
Good, thank you. Okay. Legal, Mr. Rick?
We didn't have a committee today. There was no new matters to discuss.
All right, thank you. New business, administration, administrative, just as an opening comment, with one of the stories, we suggested we were doing things behind board and all that, so I thought I'd add on the agenda. We've made some important hires. We were interviewing a number of important people, so I assigned certain members of the board to participate in those hiring practices. And so the first one was our new HR director. Kenyatta was introduced earlier, and I believe, Roy, you were involved in that.
So, yes, because of, in my career, I did a lot of hiring and firing, yeah. And so had a lot of HR experience. So Mark volunteered me for participating in the replacement and finding a replacement for Sandy. And just I want to assure the board and the public that it was a very good process. The process was the job was posted. I don't know, Kelly, do you know the number of applications, submissions?
66.
Okay, I thought
And
I knew it was 60-something.
It was posted for 7 days on civil service and I think 14 days in Indeed.
Okay, so we ended up with quite a stack of resumes. We culled it down to the top 5. We scheduled interviews with those top 5. We had those interviews. We had a couple of those drop out. One of them, right before the interview, I believe, took a position somewhere else. And we had, in my opinion, but for everybody who, there were 4 of us. It was Chris, Kelly, myself, and Sandy interviewing. And Ms. Kenyatta was the top candidate. I felt she was a 10. She checked all the boxes. Everybody else did, and I'm very, very happy to see her on board. We got I know, and I want to show everybody, we got a very, very qualified person in that position, and I want to personally welcome aboard. So,
Thank you.
any questions on? Okay.
Good, appreciate that. All right, for the finance director, since Randy's our treasurer, I asked him to participate in that process. Why don't you update us?
Yeah, Sandy West is not here, but I just need to point out that she got the same number of resumes and reviewed them all for finance director and culled them down to 5. And we had several canceled. We have interviewing 2. But one of the resumes that we got just jumped out at me. You know, my biggest problem with Kelly getting the regional director job is she was no longer the regional finance director. When I sat down with her and she explained to me the breadth of all the things that she was handling, 4 different budgets and combining those budgets, et cetera, et cetera. This was a big animal to get your arms around. It would take a particular talented person. I did not think we could replace her, to be honest with you. But we interviewed a Denise Bussinelli, pronouncing the name was the toughest part, who has worked in two government agencies, state government agencies, that literally handled all the budgets, handled all the pay, the whole accounting program and everything else. And that wasn't what really impressed us. We did, similar like Roy, we put our questions together to ask her based on what she reported in her resume and her application. And before we could answer the questions, she answered them. She had the ability to anticipate what we were thinking and what we were going to ask, which is a real talent that Kelly had in that same position. I felt very comfortable after finishing that interview that she could step in, Kelly could turn the finance over to her, and Kelly could move on to be regional director. And I didn't think we'd find somebody, but this lady is going to be great for us. And to me, she'll probably drop right in Kelly's shoes what Kelly was, and it's not going to take her long to get caught up. She's worked with doctors and educators at the state level in state agencies, and if you've ever worked with doctors and educators, we'll be a piece of cake. So but the Sandy West credit before, and I'm sorry she's not here, her house was destroyed in Ida. And she did all this work while living out of a trailer. And she's done an excellent job, and I'm sorry to see her go, and I look forward to our new hire.
A question, what's the status?
She's going to come to work December 6th. John has graciously agreed to kind of stay along a little bit longer to get her up to speed. But I can tell you guys, based on the talent coming out of this lady, I think she'll be in full sprint come January.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, mentioning John, I want to thank him for his service. He did an outstanding job of transitioning from Kelly and allowing us to go through this 6-month process of finding a qualified individual to assume Kelly's previous position. So thank you, John. All right, let's see. Police superintendent, as everybody know, Carrie resigned, so we
Yeah, so that unclassified position is not constitutional, so it has to be approved by civil service every so often. I think it's 4 years. Thank you. And that's up for renewal. And so HR is working on updating the position description and sending that to civil service, and it will be on the January civil service meeting to re-up that position. And then sometime later, we'll start looking for a search. But to be honest with you, the captains have stepped up so well, and there has not been one iota of issue as far as a vacuum or anything. They've done really, really well. They're really learning to work with each other and learn from each other. So it's really not in a huge rush to post that position.
Okay, and I asked Kelly and the captains kind of work together and come up with a overall staffing plan for our police department. Do we have too many? Do we not have enough? We have a lot of public comments about their subdivisions not getting, patrolled enough. So let's make sure when we move forward and pick one guy to be in charge that we know our overall program, where we're headed. So.
Yeah, and Mark, I'll add too that we've reached out, we're in the process of reaching out to all of the neighborhood associations and scheduling meetings with those. I've already talked to Lake Oaks. And so myself, the captain, Chris, and Ryan will attend those meetings and give them our contact information, make sure they have someone to call if they have any concerns. I will also say that police departments across the country are all very short. It's very difficult to hire police these days. And we're so there is a challenge, and it's not just police, actually, it's maintenance too, but for police specifically, that's just an issue at this time.
Okay, thank you. And the last item, Mr. Louis Capo had the position of internal auditor for the board. He reported directly to the board, and the regional director was kind of a dual purpose position. He's now at the non-flood assets, and Clay brought up the point is, do we need to hire one? So I put it on here to discuss what people think. If we should have an internal auditor, then we can advertise, post, interview, and go from there. But
I'd like to defer this till the new finance director takes over to see what she thinks about the need for that once she gets a chance. I personally don't think that we need an internal auditor because we have an external audit that's pretty comprehensive. But I'd like to see what the new finance director thinks before we kind of go down that path.
Okay. Sir?
Well, I did some research on it, and I feel just the opposite. It's not a decision the department head should make. This board, with the size of this operation, the equipment we have, the money that goes through here, it's almost imperative that we have an internal audit. Well, it doesn't have to be internal, it doesn't have to be a full-time position, but we should have an internal auditor.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I mean, Randy said earlier, he was amazed at how many budgets are juggled here, right? And it's not necessarily fun to suss out wrongdoing. Mistakes are made. I've been in business for 27 years on my own. Believe me, the one decimal mark and, you that kind of stuff. That's why we need it. That's all.
Okay.
Can I comment to?
Sure.
There's a couple things I think we've got to get through before we do it, and that is we've got to get the software finished. We have to get because quite literally, you're correct. The way we had been running this outfit, it would have been easy for people to take advantage of us. But the way Pronto is going to be put together and the software is going to be put together and everything's going to be barcoded and accounted for, it's going to prevent that a great deal. The cybersecurity is being tightened unbelievably. And I really think if we're going to hire an internal auditor, we probably want to get their feet on the ground with that. And it should be up and running by.
Yeah, July 1, and to echo that, just to give you a little bit of a flavor of how vastly different it will be. Currently, we have 4 different checking, no, well, it's more than 4. We have like 6 different checking accounts. 6 different, purchasing has 5 different credit cards and all that. With Pronto, it'll be 1. We will be able to collapse all that and streamline all that, and it will, it would definitely.
Last year, when Derek sat here, and you chimed
Yeah.
in, you had the 6 different ledgers. to
Yeah,
back up,
yeah.
And then reconciling.
Yeah.
To one.
Yeah, and then also another thing that Pronto will do is it will automatically book the intercompany. So when we're having to allocate costs between districts, it'll book that intercompany automatically. And so I agree with Ram. I'm not opposed to an internal auditor. We can certainly look at it. But I think, like he said, there's some things that need to kind of happen to
Yeah,
get
I
those
think
in place.
if you hire an internal auditor now, then you've got to train them to the software, and we're all in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Once that software is in place, we're going to get an external auditor anyway. We do that anyway because we got to do that.
Yeah.
So we can see how that is put together and make sure that it's put together properly. But once that's in place, now we need to look at seeing if somebody needs to oversee it and have an internal auditor, and then they'll bring them up to speed. So I would just hang tight let us get this thing up and running in July. And we can go ahead and write a job description or whatever we want to do between now and then and see what we want to do.
Yeah, and we haven't budgeted for the position either, so that'll give us a chance to just look at all of that.
Okay, so good.
Clay, I'm
Okay.
curious to hear
It may
what's
take
your
us
thoughts
till
on that?
July to fill the position.
Yeah.
Why not start now?
Well, I kind of agree.
I heard what you said, but that's a decision for the auditor to say, well, look, guys, this is where you're at. I'll pick up and start in July.
Yeah.
But if we start now, it might take us 4 or 5 months to fill a position.
No, 4 or 5 months, people aren't going to wait. You can see it with the HR director. I mean, we did that in a very short time period, and we had somebody that had another position already before we were even able to interview them. So it's not, in today's market, it's a job seeker's market. That's not.
Well,
Like I'd say,
an internal auditor.
wait till we at least get our finance or financial director on board for a couple months, so maybe we can bring this up in March, and then have somebody on board by July the 1st or so.
Are we talking about a full-time position here, or is this going to be
Well, that's the other point,
Another-
if we want
an
to
outside
hire an internal or
contractor.
hire a third-party
Right.
external.
We get an external audit anyway.
We already have
That.
Yeah, this would probably be for an internal position, and maybe somebody could wear more than one hat, but anyway, we'll see how that works. So anyway, so we'll defer that to probably March. That's all right. All right. The next item on the agenda is, another thing that came out in the press was that the scam, and Herb went over that a little earlier, but I thought Roman would be a good guy to come in here. Since that happened, we've changed our procedures, and Roman can kind of get us up to speed on what we do to make sure that reduces our possibility of that ever happening again.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Roman Doty. I'm the IT director for the Flood Authority. Wanted to just share with you guys, over the last, I would say 3 to 4 years, we wanted to change the culture in our user community. So we changed the way we do business and the delivery of information. So in 2018, we invited the FBI Cyber Division to come in and do a presentation to executive leadership and some staff members about cybersecurity awareness and the do's and don'ts, and just general education about cyber activity, right? So that same presentation was given in 2019 to roughly about 111 employees, administrative and staff, and second-level supervisors. So we touched the executive leadership initially, but we wanted to touch everyone else with that second presentation in 2019. And the training was just purely about awareness, about cyber threats and vulnerabilities. The topics in that presentation represented phishing attacks, internet email usage, knowing the difference between malware and ransomware, incident reporting, password creation, the benefits of two-factor authentication. And in 2020, we implemented two-factor authentication with all employees. So we enforced that policy. Our partnership, the Flood Authority that we have is with the FBI Cyber Division, Homeland Security. Actually, CISA is coming in November. Going into December, they're doing a remote test for a week, a vulnerability test, and then they're coming in to do an on-site test of our infrastructure. And upon conclusion, we'll have an out brief and, identify potential vulnerabilities and opportunities for improvement and correction. We also have a relationship with the Louisiana State Police Fusion Center with the sharing and exchanging of information and ideas. Also, we have a partnership with InfoGuard. Our entire staff are InfoGuard members. We also have a private partnership with Universal Data Incorporated. They're really integral in our disaster recovery and our cybersecurity initiatives. I want to give special thanks to Susan Jenkins in HR and Glenda Boudreau for supporting and championing our efforts in getting the message out to all of our employees within the agency. Without their participation, I don't know how far we can get. I don't know how far we would be with enforcement, truth be told. With training, in 2020, the state legislature passed House Bill 633, Act number 155, and it was signed into law by the governor's office for all state employees to take cybersecurity training. However, prior to that bill being passed and signed, the Flood Authority, we took the initiative to do our own cybersecurity training program. So we created a curriculum. We split the curriculum up into admin and non-admin, and understanding our audience. We wanted to make sure that we build a curriculum that was, inclusive. So in addition to the state training program, we also have our own program, and we will combine that program into one.
Is that like an annual thing that, like what we have to do with the ethics and the sexual harassment for the?
Yes, from my understanding, I just received word that the state cybersecurity training program is a one-time initiative. However, we felt that the state cybersecurity training program didn't carry a lot of weight, so that's why we took it upon ourselves to build our program and customize it based on the audience that we're trying to deliver our message to. And moving forward, as you can see, we're only as strong as our weakest link, The landscape is always changing, so our curriculum will reflect the changing landscape in the cyber world. And then finally, we mandate that all of our employees take not only the state program, but also our curriculum. Our curriculum is annual, and we enforce that program during the month of October, which is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And before I conclude, I have two special guests, one from Universal Data Incorporated. Her name is Stephanie Cavanaugh, and she would kind of go into detail about their contribution with the Flood Authority and the efforts that they support us on. And my second guest speaker is Special Agent Clinton McLean. He's part of the Cyber Division, and he'll share his thoughts and ideas about what we should do in case there's an event. So I have Stephanie.
But Roman, before she starts, I just want the board to know that in one of the tests that he was doing, he sent out a phishing email, and it looking like it was coming from ADP as our payroll, and it was on payroll week, and the phones were ringing off the hook. So I said, in the future, could you not do that on payroll week? But it worked. So.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephanie Cavanaugh, and as I said, I'm a representative with Universal Data, and I've had the privilege of working with your organization for about 4 years now on executing this cybersecurity roadmap that Robin alluded to. Cybersecurity, it's really a shared responsibility. In our world, the landscape is ever changing. The threat landscape is always different. There's constantly new threats that are entering our workforce that we need to be able to educate the community on. So in the world of cybersecurity, the more systems that you're trying to defend and the more education that you can provide, in theory, the more secure you are. When I originally met with your team in 2018, there was a very clear vision to create a cyber-aware culture. And as you know, cultures take a while to change. They're not done overnight, and it takes a lot of continual reinforcement. So your team had a very clear vision. They wanted to build out their expertise, educate themselves, and build partnerships that would help enable this vision for constant education. They wanted to educate their team. They, again, kind of preluding a lot of this enforcement that's being done by the state, they knew the need for education. So they wanted to make sure that they were creating a culture of education amongst your organization. And then they needed to create policies to be able to defend if there is an incident. They know exactly how to act, and they know exactly how to contain it as quickly as possible. And then they wanted to make sure that they were building mechanisms and walls to help defend your system. So as I said, the threats of cybersecurity are constantly changing, but for the past 5 years, I can tell you that more than 80% of cyber attacks are the incident of a phishing email or a phishing attack. And if you're not familiar with what they are, a phishing is a type of social engineering. It's typically done through a fraudulent message. It can be an email, but it can also be a text message. I'm sure you've seen a few of those come out lately. And they're really just trying to obtain sensitive information or have you take action that will release malware or what they would call a payload into your environment. So that's kind of why this method of cybersecurity or security awareness training is so important, because most of the following attacks will be the result of a phishing attack. This is just kind of reiterating the vision and the roadmap. And I will tell you, in a pamphlet that Roman has dispersed to you, there is not only the security roadmap that he highlighted to us, but there's also a lot of the projects and initiatives he took on over the past 4 years to execute on them. And it provides the results of each of those and how it defends the systems. So as I said, this began in 2017, at the end of 2017, to really kind of combine the organization under one and then begin to educate it. I do want to keep a focus on the cybersecurity awareness training. As Roman stated, really what's being done at the state level is important, but it's really not enough because landscapes are constantly changing. So their program that has been implemented is extremely customizable. It is also constantly updated with some of the new threats and simulated phishing attacks that are out there on the workforce. So as an example, if there's a Capital One attack that's very common right now, it will simulate those. It will target specific communities within your organization, for example, HR or finance. And it will help not only see the behavior, but train your people on what to do next time and what to look out for, because you really are the first line of defense to helping secure yourself in a cybersecurity breach. So these are really some very proactive methods that I think were kind of ahead of its time to be implemented, back in 2018. And I do want to stress that cybersecurity is a process. There really is no destination to it. As I said before, the threat landscape is always changing, but the important thing to know is things such as endpoint security or things like that, they're looking for known threats in the marketplace, meaning what is known today. And the problem with that is there's, like I said, constantly new and different types of unnamed threats that are not known to our organizations out there. So we have to implement proactive ways to help identify them and then make sure that we're defending our systems against it. So in the future, as we implement these training programs to the organization, it will actually help us figure out where we need to defend beyond education to our systems. Any questions?
No, thank you. That was educational, and I'm sure we can all take some point home with us to our own business. So you have one more.
Afternoon, I am Special Agent McClain with the FBI New Orleans Cyber Task Force here in New Orleans, just down the road. I don't have a whole lot to say today. Basically, you guys are on a very good track with what they've said already. You're implementing the right steps, we feel like. Continue to be diligent. You will continue to be targets, especially in the infrastructure aspect that you guys said there. Biggest thing I want to point out is reporting. The sooner you report stuff to us, the sooner we can either help recover funds, something like a business email compromise, which you were victims of. If you discover that quickly within a few days and you can report it to it, we have assets worldwide who can stop those funds from being transferred out and get them returned to you. The further along it gets, weeks, months, stuff like that, it's a lot more difficult to get it back. But if you can get it to us quickly, we can try and get that back to you. Just general reporting to getting it to us quickly, if you're the victim of a ransomware or something like that, we're right down the road. We can show up within hours. We can try and take images of your system to capture evidence while it's live and happening. And that is the evidence that we would need to help try to stop and convict the people that are making these type of actions against you. Beyond that, we just like to keep an open line of communication. Roman has my number, my contact information. You guys can literally walk up to our front door and say, hey, we've got something going on. Please come help us. And we can do that too. We're here to help. We are not here to be adversarial in any aspect. We want to help you. We want to stop these people. A lot of that's going to fall on you to making sure you're doing what he's asking you to do. You guys are the weak point. The employees are the weak point in any IT system. We don't see as often anymore of the traditional hacking of someone getting into a system itself. They get in by means of the human aspect. So just be aware, this phishing campaigns, don't do it on payroll week. Or do. It worked. I'll leave that to your decision though, but that's all I really have to say for the moment. Any questions?
No, I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
I was scammed a few months ago, and it took me probably a day to figure out who I really needed to call to report it to. You started with the local police, and asked to go to the FBI. So
you can even as an individual, you can always report it to us. We have a website that is a general intake form for online scams, ic3.gov, Internet Crimes Complaint Center.gov. Anybody can report a crime there, business, personal, stuff like that. We have people that watch it 24/7, and especially if it's a money thing, there's someone watching it that can try to help you get that money back. So,
as long as they don't get phished, your site.
all right, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, it sounds like we've taken a lot of steps to help minimize our risk of getting scammed again. That happens to all of us, and potentially could happen more often, but we've taken educational steps to minimize our risks. So appreciate it, Roman. Thanks for putting that together.
$5,000 was cheap to find that out, huh?
Yeah, right. Anyway, I guess we've been an hour and 45 minutes. Everybody's ready to go forward or need a break, or?
Let's go forward.
Go forward. Okay, engineering and operations. Discussion of flood protection. Clay, you put that on the agenda, so
I did, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to withdraw.
you're going to defer it or withdraw it? Okay. Anybody object to that? Or that's fine for time being?
I mean, I would just defer to my.
Oh, that was a great article. I appreciate you putting that together.
Kind of speaks to flood protection.
Yes.
Right? And, you know, I think we should all operate as if Katrina happened yesterday.
It's nice seeing you in a coat and tie.
That's an old picture. It is flip on tie.
Thank you, Gene. All right, item 2, motion to approve an amendment to the task order with Whit O'Brien for the debris removal from $250,000 to $500,000. This came before operations.
Rusty gave a presentation on this. Very good presentation, by the way. It's been approved by engineering to move forward. This is just for the monitoring the ongoing debris removals.
Yeah, we're doing things in accordance with FEMA's protocol to make sure we're getting 75% of our funds reimbursed sometime in the future. So it's
Second.
so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Motion by Herb and a second by Randy. No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, so moved. Item 3, motion to approve an amendment to the task order to DEI for construction administration and resident inspection services for Lakeshore Drive improvements, to increase the not to exceed amount by $63,000 for a total $624,228.52. This came before operations. Well, I guess we have a motion by Herb. Second. I want to second that.
Second.
Second, Gene. All right. Came before operations.
And it did approve it. Chris gave a presentation on all the rest of those. If you want to give us a little.
Yeah, Chris made a comment about the contractor covering some of this.
Right. Good afternoon.
That's me.
Yeah, this project has been extended due to numerous storms, and as part of that contract, the contractor can ask to work weekends and so forth, which he did throughout the project, and as a result, they are responsible for paying for these. So these are basically a wash, because he'll be responsible for those overtime hours.
Okay. That sounds reasonable. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Just note, I abstained from conversation.
Rick abstained. Apparently he represents him. Okay. So moved. Item 4, motion to approve the award and execution of a contract with M.R. Pittman in the amount of $3,912,745 for Orleans Marina seepage repairs. We have a motion.
Yes.
By Herb Weesham, second by Roy. Came before operations.
Yes, we discussed this, and Chris gave a presentation on this one also. Move forward to approving it.
Okay. Engineering recommended approval, and so did operations. So any questions, discussion?
How long's the bulkhead?
This is a little over 400 feet.
Yep. So pretty expensive, but it needs to be done. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. So moved. Item 5, motion to approve the execution of a task order with Glenville Hunter Juniors with the not to exceed amount of $175,898 for the inspection of that project. Have a motion by Herb Weesham.
I guess I'm doing them all, huh?
Well, you were chair of operations, so second.
Not the only one in there.
We have a second by Roy. All right.
Yes.
This is just to hire the engineer who designed the project to oversee the construction, to make sure it's done in accordance with the plan, also to inform local residents and other impacts related to its construction. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, so moved. Item 6, motion to approve the execution of change order number 2 to the contract with Courts Construction Services for mitigation of Outfall Canal Erosion Orleans Avenue Canal Project for additional riprap required in several areas along the toe for the not to exceed amount of $127,000. We have a motion. Gene, and a second by Roy. This came before operations.
Yes, the total contract amount was 3.1 million, and this was the estimate wrap between the two. Didn't have any problem, it was a small change.
Yeah, apparently we did cross sections at 200 feet, and the contractor who wants to get paid did more frequently.
And identified some eroded areas that required more material.
Okay. All right, any discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so moved. All right. Item 7, motion to approve the execution of a task order with C.H. Finnemaster and Associates to perform LiDAR, topographic, and multi-beam bathymetric survey of the Orleans, London, and 17th Street Canal. And Glenda's going to make sure if it's a numer or a spelled out, but for a total not to exceed the amount of $125,680. Do we have a motion? Gene, second by Herb Miller. They've done this before.
Yes.
And kind of developed a process, and makes sense that we do that. So any questions or discussion?
Did they do it on the Orleans Avenue Canal?
Yes, they did all three.
Which is why this guy had to get more money. He had to fix some stuff you found?
It was, actually, that survey could have probably eliminated this, and we will do that going forward, but it kind of overlapped in the design phase when we did the survey.
All right, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so moved. All right, it says the next board meeting will be December 16th, but as we stated earlier, if depending on when we get our insurance quotes, we may have an emergency meeting and defer our December meeting, but I'll let you know how that goes. So appreciate it. We're now adjourned.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.